Hi there, this is Josh from Literary Gladiators, and today I am here with the 25th foodie book tag. We have made it to 25 different foodie book tags, and to celebrate, I put together a vote for those that were interested on our Facebook group page, as well as within the comments of the voting announcement. I gave everybody 8 choices, and the one that got the most votes, and is the tag that I will be doing today, is the pie book tag. I put together various questions that center around different kinds of pie, and I really had a good time putting this together, coming up with different questions, and the books that I've noticed that I've incorporated on here and works are relatively different from what I have been answering these questions with prior. But let's get right into it, shall we? First one is Apple Pie, a work that sings the praises of America. And for this question, I am really interested to hear what everybody has to say, because everybody has a different view and an outlook on the idea of America, be it if they live here, if they don't live here, if they're passionate, if they are neutral, if they see some of the quirkers. But for the question at hand, I went with Paul Revere's Ride by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. And the thing that sticks out to me about that poem singing the praises of America is not just the content of the poem itself, but the fact that it was written in order to encourage people to stand behind the Civil War effort, and it ended up creating a myth out of Paul Revere's Ride. Paul Revere's Ride was not as spectacular as the poem describes, and he ended up getting arrested afterward because of his anti-British actions. And he did not say the British are coming, because most of the people identified as British. He said something more so along the lines of the regulars are coming out. And it wasn't, I would think that it was not as, it didn't necessarily stick out the way that we believe it to doing in this day and age. But next one is Cherry Pie, a work that helped you develop a greater understanding of your country. In my case, I live in the United States, and as far as history is concerned, there really isn't a particular text that I would credit as helping me develop a greater understanding. I really developed a greater understanding in my U.S. history classes in high school. In particular, U.S. History 1, Mr. Gorman was very passionate about American history, and he displayed this passion and clarified particular bits of information. For instance, why they refer to the native tribes in our country as Indians, why John Hancock's signature on the Declaration of Independence was so big, what was Christopher Columbus thinking when, what made him think that the Earth was round and not flat. My favorite one was Who's the Quaker we all know and love? And I said the guy in the oatmeal box, and after a good laugh, he said, in fact, it was William Penn. But that my U.S. history classes in college also helped me develop a greater understanding with Professor Trimble, who has made a guest contribution on this channel. And however, the books that I'm going to be sourcing as helping me develop a greater understanding are the Norton Anthologies of American Literature, volumes A and B. And the reason for this is not only does it help me develop a greater understanding for American literature during that time, but it also provides me with that sense of human thought and honesty and what people during that time were going through and thinking. Dr. Bordelon is one of the things that he made mention to was what his thesis was about, and that was what were people reading during the time. They were reading Charles Dickens and William Shakespeare in 19th century America. That was, and he reminded us of that as far as the flow of the class was concerned. But I think that if you're looking at, depending on what lens you're looking at, one thing that really stuck out was Rip Van Winkle by Washington Irving, and how it gives us it takes this perspective that we thought we would be thinking and flip it on its head as far as the American progress is concerned. The next one is Blueberry Pie, a beach read you could probably finish in one visit. And this is a bit of a stretch, but I'm looking at something that's engaging, and I would go with any book in the Alex Cross series by James Patterson. This is James Patterson at his best, and I've currently read the first four. Along Came a Spider, Kiss the Girls, Jack and Jill, and Cat and Mouse. I really need to get to the rest of the series because it has been 10 years since I've read that or anything by James Patterson. I personally feel that he was better toward the beginning. During the last 10 years, it feels like he has started to more so write for quantity than for quality. And aside from the Alex Cross series, just about everything else he writes is actually the co-author, and then Patterson comes in and touches things up. But the next one is Pumpkin Pie, a work that would make for a great November book club read. And knowing me, I like to be a bit different. So I'm going to go with American Indian Myths and Legends, which there's so much that you can do with this, where you can have them read a particular section, or just have them read the whole thing and then bring up which one they felt stuck out to them, or have them read some of them and have them talk about what stuck out to them. There's so much that you can do with this, and we've gone over 3 of the myths/legends in this collection on our channel through discussions, and I've always found interest in them because there's so much that you can explore. Next one is Pecan Pie, a writer that does the best job writing about the American South. And for what I've read thus far, I'm going to go with William Faulkner because of his great use of imagery and putting you in the moment and developing that atmosphere that puts you into that moment. The two that I'm most familiar with that I've read are Rose for Emily and Barn Burning, which I was introduced to in college, and we have gone over both of them on our channel, and both made for some spectacular discussions. I know with Barn Burning I was talking about it beyond the text as well, because the Snopes family is explored at a greater realm beyond the particular short story. Next one is Sweet Potato Pie, a work that responded to something. And Sweet Potato Pie was created by the American South to respond to the pumpkin pie of the American North during the Civil War era. But for that one, I am going to go with Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. And the reason I'm picking this one is because Ronan Farrow responds to the incidents involving sexual harassment, sexual assault, and rape among the bigwigs in the media, be it film or the television networks, and he pretty much confirms that there is a great deal of suspicion and dirt that lies within the major heights of the media, and some of us have been thinking and making assumptions, and Farrow pretty much assures that in a good handful of those cases it is correct. And I think that this was a great response, especially with what he had to go through in order to get here. Next is Key Lime Pie, a mystery that you would take to read on the beach. Key Lime Pie is a staple of Key West cuisine, and its origins are somewhat of a mystery. So, bit of a clever way to put the question together, but I'm going to go with another James Patterson book, and in this case, I'm going to go with Honeymoon. This was the last Patterson book that I read, but it was a pretty fast-paced and intriguing thriller, and it definitely benefits from Patterson's signature short and cliffhanging chapters that want to keep you reading. Next is the Boston Cream Pie, a work you would be up to reading from a non-preferred genre. And the one genre that I hear a lot about, but does not necessarily pique my interest, is fantasy. But fantasy has been something that I've been willing to look into on the basis that it is original and of interest. I read The Never-Ending Story in early 2019, and I thought it was brilliant. This was a revisiting from when I originally read it back in 2005, but we went over The Never-Ending Story on our channel, and it turned out being one of my favorites. It was my second favorite on the year, and it also made my list of 10 favorites of all time. But I'm going to go with something different. I'm going to go with the fantasy and science fiction magazines, because I've been looking to get into literary magazines. I read one short story from the January-February of 2020 issue called Save, Salve, Shelter by Essa Hansen. And I was really intrigued by the fact that there are thought-provoking messages that give the fantastical a sense of reality in the way that it is something that we can relate to and something that we can think about in the real world. And by doing so in a fantastical situation that is less likely to happen than, say, in science fiction. I'm thinking that this short story, the Save, Salve, Shelter, was more science fiction because it's more likely that it's going to happen. But I think that it could still ring true that while science fiction, there are things that could possibly happen, in fantasy, well, just about everything is not likely to happen. It still has messages that we can take out into our world of reality. But what I also like about fantasy and science fiction is that this is among the best magazines within its genre, and they actually come out of Hoboken, New Jersey, so I like to support magazines that produce written works, in particular works of fiction, and they come out of New Jersey. I'm also subscribed to Raritan and Literary Review, which come out of Rutgers and Fairleigh Dickinson, respectively. And I also got to meet their publisher, Gordon Van Gelder, at a Garden State Speculative Fiction Writers meeting. Next is Macaroni Pie, a comfort read that can be enjoyed by all audiences. And I'm going to go with The Never-Ending Story by Michael Ende. I was introduced to this in middle school, and I revisited this last year, and I think that all kinds of readers, be it younger readers who are looking for something coming of age, or an adult reader that's looking to make the best out of the message at hand and the story. This is just a celebration of what it is to be a reader. Next is Moon Pie, a work you can see yourself picking up at a shop with a drink, be it a general store, a convenience store, a newsstand, something that sells paperbacks or books in general. And I'm going to go with Richard Lehman's novels. I would say anything that was published by Dorchester, which not on the basis of the publishing company, but on the basis of the writers, because Dorchester was not a good publishing company, but the writers that published under them are great. And Richard Lehman is a very... He's such an intriguing writer within the genre. He pretty much writes for horror, as opposed to someone like Stephen King, who writes horrifying works. But the one I'm holding up here is In the Dark, which was actually adapted into a low-budget film, and it just has a very interesting concept where a librarian finds an envelope with money in it and she ends up on this bit of on a scavenger hunt where the stakes get bigger and the consequences become even more horrifying. But I would say that anything from Richard Lehman or any of the others like Brian Keene and writers of that nature would be reads that I would be up to getting at a store like that. And, if I'm being good, a water, and if I feel like having something to treat myself, I'll get myself a root beer or a vanilla Coke. Next one is Pizza Pie, a writer that does a great job with long and short works and thick and thin books. And for that, I'm going to go with Stephen King, because Stephen King has done an outstanding job with any size that he has dealt with. He has done a great job with thick chunkers like It and Bag of Bones. He's done a great job with thinner books, kind of like Thinner and The Running Man, even though those are Richard Bachman. He's done great with long works, and he's also done great with shorter works like novellas and short stories. He's just so versatile. I've probably read more from Stephen King than any other writer, but I would like to read even more. Next is Whipped Cream, a work that is overwhelmingly in your face with its message. And I'm going to go with 45 Plays for 45 Presidents, written by various playwrights. Andy Bayetis, Sean Benjamin, Ginevra Gallo-Bayentis, Chloe Johnston, and Karen Weinberg. And what makes it about a bit in your face is how this play seems to rely heavily on research. The presidents that are being depicted in here are pretty much leaning on the research at hand. Some of them, like Andrew Jackson, have the attitude that we can pretty much figure depicts them. But there were some of them that were acting very regressive. Some of them were just research information right in your face that I could be getting in a biography or a book of presidential biographies. Next one is American Pie, like the Don McLean song. A work that does a great job using allegory. And when I think of allegory, the one thing that sticks to mind, going all the way back to high school, is The Minister's Black Veil by Nathaniel Hawthorne, which has to do with a particular minister who wears this black veil in order to cover the secrets that he is bearing from his past. And it really says a lot about the structure of humanity and how, in many cases, the church is their sense of redemption. And I think a lot of people have that tendency to relate. Next one is, what is your favorite kind of pie? And I would go with pizza pie as being my favorite, but as far as traditional, more traditional pies are concerned, I would say that pumpkin pie is my favorite. And finally, Pie Day. Who do you tag? Because this is the 25th Foodie Book Tag, I am going to tag 25 people. A wide range of people. People that have done the tag before. I'm going to be tagging people that have voted, in particular, voted for pie as their option. And I also wanted to tag some new booktubers. Get the new people involved. I'm going to tag Steve Donahue, Bill from Bill Ruttenberg, Jack from Rambling Ractioner, Amy from the Dusty Bookshelf, Michaela and Gretchen from Betwixt the Books, James from James Holder, Maya from Bespectacled, Charlotte from Charlotte Reads, Kara from Wild Book Garden, Taj from The Last Lime, Laura from Let's Get Fictional, Rebecca from Rapacious Reads, Sean from Sean D. Standfast, Beth from Beth Chats Books, Alexis from Real Human Being, Rose from Scally Dandling About the Books, Joe from Joe Fisher, The Booktube Goddess, Lexa from Lexa Lubanga, Sue from Sue Tan, Sophie from Sophie Ronan, Kara from Books with Kara, Alan from Alan Morton, or now he's the Bookish Traveler, Peg from the History Shelf, and everyone else from Literary Gladiators. If you're on Literary Gladiators and you've been on the panel, or you do individual videos, consider yourself tagged. Especially Ari, because Ari endorsed the pie book tag on the group page. Even though Pie and Burgers really put together a good fight, but many of the votes on the comments in the voting video, they endorsed they voted for pie. So that's 25 foodie book tags, and I'm really happy with how this series has stood the test of time. One thing that's really amazed me is that the cookie book tag, which is the second of the foodie book tags, has been making somewhat of a comeback. And I remember filming that with Charlie back in 2015. It was the Back to the Future Day. We filmed it on October 21st of 2015, and I released it a week later. But here we are. I'm really happy that the bread book tag got a good response, and I hope that many more of the videos do, and I really hope that more people complete them. And there's a lot more foodie book tags in store. Thank you for tuning into this video. I hope you check out some more videos from our channel, and I also encourage you to support us on Patreon, because that will allow us to provide you with more material. For now, and as always, I encourage you to keep reading.